Welcome to the Human Evolution Podcast, where we dive deep into the science, philosophies, and strategies that create real and lasting change. I'm Goldstein, and here we leave traditional self-help behind and map the real terrain of true personal development.
It's been a couple of weeks since we posted something. We've been very, very busy. We've got a lot going on now. The Shift community is up and running. We are now in beta launch, and it's open to the public, and we'll make sure we share the link in the notes below. Very excited about it. We're going to keep the beta launch open for an indefinite period of time at the lowest price it'll ever be. So we'll make sure that everybody gets that. And in there right now, we're building in public, as they say. So we're adding things daily. We've got a lot of live events planned, all of our previously recorded stuff. If you just joined tomorrow, for example, and you missed the last 3 or 4 live recordings and coaching sessions, are also stored and available in our event library. So anyway, not getting into too many details about that. Hey, how you been, man? It's been a while.
Great. And it's been really pretty great seeing the stuff in the community. It's really kind of like blown me away. And as I was talking to Brittany about this a bit earlier, in the fact that I just love the fact that this community, more so than any community I've been in before, are so interactive and so big on cheering each other on. And it's everything I always wanted. To me, that's what Human Evolution Movement is all about. It's about helping each other evolve. And it seems like this is actually something that I'm getting a chance to see in real life, really freaking blowing me away. So it's a lot going on. Don't get me wrong. And we're definitely moving fast and breaking things, as they say in startup culture. But I'm really enjoying seeing where it's going, and I'm kind of excited to see where it goes next.
Absolutely. It's been very refreshing because as somebody who's been a member of many groups before, some of them on Facebook and elsewhere, we're housed on circle.so. You rarely see the level of participation and encouragement between the members that we're seeing now, which has been really, really nice and refreshing. So it's been really great. And it's given us a lot of energy and really taking the momentum and running with it. So last week, I believe we were talking in the community exclusively to one of the members there. I won't get into too many details, but that I think is going to steer our conversation today.
It's again, like, without getting into too much detail, but the one thing that really came up very often was after digging through some of the issues that she showed up with, was the idea of not really trusting her body. And it brought up a story in my mind that I really wanted to share with people because it really kind of blew me away. So this is rewinding back about, I don't know, maybe about 13 or so years ago now, maybe a bit, whatever it was. And I was over at a friend's house, and at the same time I was studying parkour and having fun and all the crazy kind of stuff that you can do with your body. For those of you that don't know it, it's just kind of like urban gymnastics, for lack of better wording. And so I just learned how to do a backflip. And I was so super proud of myself that I could finally do it. But I'd only done it in the parkour studio. But I was over at a friend's house for Super Bowl to watch the Super Bowl. And in her backyard, she had a trampoline. And so a friend of mine and I were jumping on the trampoline together. And there's a bunch of people around waiting their turn, whatever it is. And as we're jumping on the trampoline together, I scream out to my friends, it's like, hey guys, want to see my backflip? And everyone's like, yeah, it's like everyone's drunk. It's perfect time to try to do a backflip, right? And so I'm jumping on the trampoline and everyone's excited about it. And so it's time for me to do the backflip. And my friend and I are jumping together. And as I'm jumping, getting the height I need for the backflip, and I know on the next jump, I committed in my mind, I'm going to do the backflip. As I'm ready to do it and I've already committed, my friend jumps at the exact same time as me, which is, it's in trampoline, they call it the double bouncing kind of thing. So he takes all the spring out the trampoline because he lands a moment before me kind of thing. And so where I was expecting to get a big push up, I basically landed on a concrete floor, but I'd already in my mind committed to the backflip. So what happens is I go into the backflip without the spring that I was expecting. And basically my body went halfway and landed back down. And I landed directly on my neck. And I heard this huge pop and click. And I just lay down on the trampoline, just kind of splayed out, just a full on like crucified on a cross kind of thing. And I just hear everyone around me going this can't be good. And the first thought in my mind is oh shit. I had a pop in my neck. Am I paralyzed? And so I'm just laying on the trampoline and my friend stops bouncing right away. And I kind of look over to my side with my eyes without moving anything else. I look over and I can see that I can move my left index finger. And I look over to my right and I can see I can move my right index finger and I can wiggle my toes. I'm like, okay. So this was intense, but nothing major happened here, thank God. Like, and I start moving my body, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I clicked my neck. This is not good. I can go to a chiropractor and I can get it fixed. It's okay. We get off the trampoline, and I'm like, okay, I'm done bouncing now. And we go back to watch the rest of the game, whatever that's going on. And as we're watching the game, I start realizing that my head starts doing one of these things. And I'm like, okay, fine. This is not necessarily a good thing. So I say my goodbyes, kiss the host goodbye, whatever it is. And I'm like, okay, fine. I got to go home. I go home, and the next day I got major pain in my neck. So I schedule myself a massage, and I get a massage, and the pain in my neck doesn't go. And to now fast forward through the story, I mean, fast forwarding a year or 2 or 3 through the story, kept having headaches and a pain in my back, in my neck. And I did all the massages I could. I went to see all the different chiropractors I could. I did everything. I got injections in my neck. I did everything else. And the pain was just stuck in my neck. And at some point, but it was a click in my neck. It wasn't a big deal. This is my stupidity, whatever it is. Fast forwarding like about even longer, maybe about 7 years after that, I go see a chiropractor, and it's my first time going to see him. Whereas before I was seeing the chiropractors I'd always seen. So he goes, before I work on you, I just want to take a clear set of x-rays and see what's going on with you. And so now before I get into that, I just want to comment on the fact that over the course of these 6 years, I am so angry at myself. I'm in so much pain the whole time. I'm getting these headaches. I'm getting these kind of migraine headaches. My shoulder is stiff. It's like, and I'm still trying to do all these different things. I'm just so freaking annoyed the whole freaking time. And like, whatever I do, I'm just frustrated to all hell. And there's nothing I can do about it. And I've just kind of like given up on anything to the point that like, I go see this chiropractor thinking, let's see what he can do. Cause I mean, I just need to get rid of this pain in my neck, whatever it is. So I go to this new chiropractor. He takes the x-rays. And as he's looking at the x-rays, he's sitting there with his pen. And as he's looking at them, he goes, so when did you break your neck? And I go,
oh, Jesus.
Excuse me? And he goes, yeah, right there. Can you see? Like you can see, like, I mean, it's healed over now, but like, when did you break your neck? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And so basically he showed me on the x-ray, it's freaking nuts. It's a tiny little fracture, but like, I mean, in your neck, a tiny little fracture is enough to cause paralysis if it just goes into the spinal column. And here I am for the last 7 years, hating my body with so much anger for like, oh God, why are you doing this to me? And as soon as he said that to me, just surge of emotion went over me of just such a sense of gratitude and sadness for my body. Yeah. That this thing that I hated for these last 6 years for the pain it caused me, all it was doing this whole freaking time was trying to stop me from going into paralysis and dying.
Yeah.
The only thing it did was trying to protect me this whole freaking time. And this whole time I was just ready to like, why are you still broken? Why are you still broken? Why are you still messed up? And the thing I want to talk about today is the fact that these small things that go on inside of us, we're so quick to judge them as being bad inside of us. I was so quick to judge my body as being broken that I never went back to the deeper understanding, to the deeper root, that there was something inside of me that was genuinely trying to protect me at the deepest level. And I was just so busy, angry the whole time, that as soon as I heard from the chiropractor the opposite of like that my body was genuinely trying to protect me from paralysis, there was nothing but such a sense of gratitude for what this part inside of me was trying to do. And the thing I want to talk about today is the idea of like, so this is a very specific physical symptom, but how I've seen this so many times, time and again with so many of my clients, in the fact of a person having a phobia and them just being so upset with their phobia, or a person having depression and being so upset with themselves for being depressed, but not understanding that at a deeper level, that there's a part inside of them that is genuinely trying to do its best to, in their mind, keep them alive or keep them safe or something along those lines. And as long as it's still stuck in that mindset, you can fight it as much as you want, but it is still stuck in, I'm doing everything I can to protect you. And I don't care how much you hate me. You don't even have a clue what I'm trying to do for you. I am here to protect you. And so I went on a bit of this monologue, but I wanted to share that with you and the audience, just in terms of, so we can at least start the conversation around that.
I can think of a million different ways that's applied in my life. I mean, to the physical things like you mentioned, for example, people get a fever and they're like, oh, I got to take all this stuff to get rid of this fever. I'm like, well, the fever is actually your body trying to heat up so it can get rid of things. I always thought that was strange. Also,
Right?
people putting ice packs on to keep swelling down, which I understand sometimes that's warranted, but a lot of times I'm like, well, isn't the body sending extra blood, whatever there, repair things? Like, listen to me trying to make, you know what I mean? Like, send something there to help. So why are
Absolutely.
we fighting against the natural healing or the natural response? And
To actually build on that, like, so I mean, what medical science has done over like the last, like, let's just say 60 years, and I'm probably just getting the number completely wrong, is their logic is like, if you have some kind of inflammation, which is usually what's going on in the body, is they give you an anti-inflammatory drug, whether they inject cortisone into the place where you're inflamed or something else. And for a moment, you get the relief. But what's happening now with more functional medicine kind of thing is that they're looking at it from the other perspective of how do we aid the body in the healing process that it needs in order to stop this process because it finally got what it needed. So as opposed to, for example, saying your body's inflamed and so let's just stop the inflammation, which will give you some kind of temporary relief, let's give your body the enzymes it needs, or let's give your body the specific chemicals it needs to promote the healing to finally be done with it. And it is such a different way of looking at it. And there's two different things I want to go on to with this, but like I definitely wanted to comment on this first in terms of the fact that very often what we're trying to do is we're just trying to get rid of the symptoms or mask over the symptoms, where the thing is, as long as the deeper issue is going on, if you're constantly getting a cortisone injection in your neck because your body's going into spasm, as opposed to actually dealing with why is your body going into spasm in the first place, you're going to be getting cortisone injections for the rest of your life. And then what's going to happen is, because you haven't dealt with the core issue, the next issue is going to show up, and the next issue is going to show up, and the next issue is going to show up. So regardless how many massages I got to try to fix my neck, my body wasn't going to let go of that spasm because it was trying to protect me from what it at that moment thought was paralysis. And regardless what I did, regardless how many drugs I took, regardless what cortisone injections I had, my body was smart enough to know that it couldn't allow itself to stop fighting this war for me, regardless how much I begged it to.
All those treatments and everything, you still had relatively the same amount of pain, the same amount of not discomfort, but like lack of mobility. So, you know, no matter what they put into your system, short of morphine, it was that strong.
It was that strong.
Your inner, you know, subconscious or whatever, the part that controls the autonomic was like, nope, this guy's not. He's not doing it. No more trampoline for this guy.
Absolutely, absolutely. But the thing that's really powerful, it's like, and this is the difference that actually I believe makes a big difference, is my body 7 years before that, very rightfully so, went into spasm to protect my neck from paralysis. But by the time I'd seen that chiropractor, he asked me, when did I break my neck? Not how is my neck still broken? So my body did heal itself. It did everything it needed to heal itself, but it was still stuck in the old pattern of maintaining the spasm in order to protect itself. It never got updated with the new information of saying you're safe now. And so it was still running an old tape saying I need to protect him. Whereas even though that was true for the first 2 years or the first 6 months or however long it was, for the remaining time, had it actually received the better information, it could have actually stopped that pattern. And that is a very big thing. And I'm taking it from an emotional perspective right now. But when you are 4 years old and you're in an abusive household, and you all of a sudden develop all these bad habits of becoming a difficult child, whatever it is, because you need to somehow fight off what's going on for you in the abuse. Makes perfect sense when you're 4 years old. When you're 24 years old and you're no longer in that household, and now you're still acting the same way that a 4-year-old did, because that is just the pattern that you've established, you're now just using outdated information in a new world. And that is where you've got, from a computer programming point of view, you're accessing the wrong database and therefore giving the person the wrong information.
We talked about this a little bit before about your mind or your body slipping back into, again, pulling on the old data or the old version 1 instead of version 10 of, you know, a good example is around the holidays. A lot of people go home to see their family, and you'll see somebody that's in their 40s revert back and act like they're in their teenage years again. You'll see siblings come home and they get into fights, and it's just, you know, the mom's doing their laundry. It just, the whole thing is very strange, but it unfolds naturally. And it's all because of back in the environment, the familiar sights, sounds, and smells. And there you go. And
it's amazing, because what you can end up getting is you can get a person that, I'm just taking a stupid example, but a person, for example, that's like a captain of industry and can manage a Fortune 500 company goes home and acts like a freaking 12-year-old around their siblings and around their parents, because they're still in the old story of, this is who I am as a child. This is who I am around my family members. Put them in front of a boardroom and they can absolutely crush it in so many different ways. Put them in front of their family and that story takes over. And
Yeah.
it's insane to see it. I mean, I've been victim to it so many times because we just have those stories going on in our lives. And I want to take this just one step further, and then we're going to go into it a bit more. But so what happened in the live hot seat session that we had was this woman had the place where she didn't trust her body. So what happened was, when years before that, she had issues with her body. And so she developed the story of, what I need to do is I need to fight against my body, because in that moment, it was true for her in that moment. So she developed the logic of, I need to basically, if my body says I'm tired, I have to push myself and I have to get up for work. That isn't the example that happened there, but let's just use that as the example. And that was true 8 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever it was. Now, what happens is she's done all the healing. She's capable of doing everything else. And she doesn't need to look at her body as an enemy anymore. But she's still functioning under that same mindset. And she doesn't understand that she can now look at her body as something that has managed to heal, and that she's in a different place with it, and develop a new relationship with the reality that is here today, which is the next thing we're going to step into in a moment, which is actually dealing with the reality for what it is, rather than your story for what it was 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's pretty common with aging too. I have a couple examples of this. Obviously, working out, recovering from the gym or something else like that. The old way of thinking was, no, what are you doing? Like, you're sore, you get up and do it again. Like, you're just being lazy. You know, you should be able to exercise X amount of times per week. You shouldn't need to take 3 days off or whatever. Same thing with mental work or knowledge work, that, you force yourself, like, gosh, I need to finish this. I need to write this. I need to do whatever. What would have taken me 6 hours when I'm tired, if I woke up the next morning, I can knock it out in an hour, just because we're fighting against my mind, what I should be able to do, what I used to be able to do when I was younger. This reminds me of something else that's kind of funny. Most of my adult life, because I've been single. I mean, I've had long-term relationships, but I haven't been married for a really long time. And the office that I worked in was mostly married, mostly male. It was male dominated. It was law enforcement. And this also applied to some of my friends outside the office, the happy hour crowd. It's amazing, like, these people you meet, and they're sharp, they're successful, they built multi-million-dollar companies, or they've done all these amazing things, but they would get divorced after like 20 years, and they would come out with me to go to happy hour or something, and they acted like they acted before they got married. So when you're saying these things, that's what it reminds me of. I know that's kind of a little off for example, but I'm like, these guys are example. So good. Yeah. At everything they do, they're so sharp. And whether it was in the government and they had to make like life and death decisions, or they were business leaders, and then they were so immature because their brain, like, the last time they had to date or just interact, I'm like, I can't take you in public. You're embarrassing me. And they're like 10 years older than me. So that's what it brought up when you were telling me that story.
Absolutely. And as soon as you have a story in your head about like what things are going to be like, or who you are in a situation, or what a situation means to you, it's one of my favorite things. It's a truth I live by. And the fact that you are not living in reality, you're living in the stories you create. You're living in a made up fantasy world, as I say it. Right. And so if your story is the fact that, like, it's just like, I'm a bad boy drinker, whatever it is, and then you go out to the bar, you're going to be the bad boy drinker, even though inside of you, you've got that thought in the back of your head of like, that's just not truth for me anymore. But that story leaves it feeling absolutely true for you. And the thing that can make a difference, and this is something that you and I have discussed on some level, and I want you to actually play around with right now too, is the concept of just looking at reality today, really analyzing, is this reality, or is this just my story, the take I'm putting on reality right now? So like an example would be like, a person having the belief of people are judgmental, and therefore they come to me because they have stage fright, let's just say, whatever it is. People are very judgmental, people are mean, and therefore I have stage fright. And what we can look at is, I get the fact that that was true when you were in high school and kids were teasing you, perhaps, for example. And even then I can say, is that true that people were judgmental, or those people were judgmental? And even more so now, when you are talking to the people in your corporation, are these people going to be judgmental, or do they really need to hear what you have to say? Because at the end of the day, you're the person that's reporting on the final Q4 results of 2023 and they need to know what's going on. Are they really going to be judgmental of you for the things you say the same way that the kids in high school were? And as soon as you can actually see reality for what it really, really is, as opposed to the story that you're in, everything begins to start falling into place. And it's really just a matter of it's kind of like the Good Will Hunting moment, kind of like just a slap on the back of the head, sitting there saying, stop it with that story and let's look at reality. Let's genuinely step into reality. What can you see right now? What can you smell right now? What can you taste right now? What can you feel right now? What is really genuinely going on for you here today? And is it a truth that you're still living on?
I've been procrastinating on a couple of things this week, which is human nature, but more so for me, I think. And I've asked myself this question a couple of times. What would this be like if this was fun? Or what would this be like if this was easy? And I've done that a few times this week, and it's actually worked. There's a couple of things I was dreading doing. Nothing's difficult. Look, I've got very lucky. I can work remotely and everything else. So none of it was like anything dangerous or anything like that. But I said, well, what would this be like if this was more fun? And then it immediately in my brain, because I stopped myself and I'm like, maybe this is fun. What is doing that was very, very helpful. Or what would this be like if this was easy? I use that in the gym all the time too. It doesn't always work, but you know what I mean? Yeah. It's because in my brain, I'm telling myself like, I can't lift that, or I can't run for that, whatever. I can't spend 20 minutes on the stair machine, whatever it is these days. And then but if you're like, what if you could? I'm like, so little things like that, it really made a big difference.
Absolutely. And then just understanding the fact that like this all started way back when with something inside of you genuinely having a good reason for what it was doing at that moment. The same way that my body was trying to protect me way back when from paralysis. But the fact of the matter is now you're no longer that person. So let's just say, for example, when you were a teenager and gym class sucked or whatever it was, and you didn't want to be the person out in the field in your being teased for being overweight, whatever it was. And so you came up with a story inside of your head of sitting there saying, I hate exercise. I hate gym. And so that becomes your story. And to the 12-year-old, that makes perfect sense. And it was your perfect way of protecting yourself because you finally had a story that was safer than you sitting there saying, I'm too shy to be on the field in my sports clothes and look fat. So it's easier to just say, I hate exercise. And that was a part inside of you trying to protect you from having to be that exposed by, and the next story along that line is people are judgmental along with it. And so you create the story of, I hate exercise. Now, fast forward to the place that you could now go to the gym, work out with a personal trainer, look at reality and say, this person isn't going to criticize me. They're actually going to be my biggest cheerleader. And I've got all these different workout routines that I can do in so many different ways. And now I've got the ability to do things in such a different way that I can genuinely enjoy it. And then you can just tell that 12-year-old inside of you, all those things you were scared of, you're safe. You're genuinely okay and safe now. And now, what would it be like if I could go and work out with my personal trainer? And what if it could be fun? What if I could genuinely enjoy this and actually enjoy seeing myself go down on the scale and at the same time feel completely inspired and motivated by this amazing person that's pushing me through stuff? And it makes such a huge difference as soon as you can actually make that shift in your head of, this is the reality I'm in today. And I get where I was in the past. And I love and adore that 12-year-old. But just because I love that 12-year-old doesn't mean I need to have a 12-year-old still writing my story today. I can be different today, and I can give that 12-year-old a tough love and say, you know what, right now you get to shut up, sit back, relax, you are safe. Right now I can go and I can do this, and we're safe, and we get a chance to do this really well.
For anybody who's tuning into this for the first time, we do talk a lot about the inner child and everything. That's very powerful stuff, because that's just a huge eye opener for anybody who knows what we're talking about. And if they don't, please go back and check those episodes out. I can even link it. But so we talked about some physical things, like some of the physical impacts of the exercise and injury and everything else. How does this apply to emotional issues like depression or anger or sadness? Is there a good example of that where the same concept could be used?
Oh, to me, it actually feels like it's more easily tied into those things. So for example, it's back to like the Good Will Hunting example. Like it just explains it so well. It's like, I kind of like, I almost want to like share that video, but like, everyone's already seen it 2,000 times if you've ever watched any of my podcasts, but it's like, so what you've got let's use this as an example, the Good Will Hunting one. You've got a little boy who at a very young age is beaten up by their foster father, and being beaten up by their foster father they need to develop a new persona. The persona needs to be the bad boy, pardon my French, fuck you attitude of you can't hurt me. I am big and strong enough to fight back against you. And when you look at a 4-year-old that's being abused by a foster father, that makes perfect freaking sense in order for them to survive. That is no different than my neck going into spasm to say, I'm stopping you from being paralyzed. That 4-year-old is making a decision in that moment, unconsciously perhaps so, but still making the decision of, in order for me to survive in this environment, I need to be so tough that he can't hurt me anymore. I need to fight back. I absolutely need to fight back. And they make that decision and it makes perfect sense. And then fast forward 10 years from 4 when it's 14, and all of a sudden you have a juvenile delinquent that is still doing the same things, that is still fighting against everyone, that's still fighting against the system, even though that they're out of that foster family. But they don't have the updated information in that moment. Fast forward another 10 years, and what you've got is a 24-year-old that is fighting with the legal system the whole time. Or perhaps they managed to somehow create a life for themselves, but they still see themselves as the bad boy, and so they're cheating on their wife, or they have an addiction problem, or whatever it is, because that 4-year-old inside of them is still saying, I'm the bad boy, and this is how I keep myself strong and safe. And in that moment, what you do is you tell that 4-year-old, get it. I really freaking love, adore you, and love you to bits. You did everything you could to protect me when I was 4 years old, and I needed you so freaking much. But now I'm 24 years old. I've got so many great things going on for me. And when I look at reality, I don't need to be a bad boy anymore. I am safe. I'm surrounded by people that love and adore me. And if they don't love and adore me, I kick them the hell out of my life. Right now, I get a chance to actually be the good guy that is surrounded by people that he loves and adores, or she loves and adores. And I get to be different. So 4-year-old, right now, I need you to shut up for a moment. And I need you to see reality for what it is. I am no longer being abused by a person. I'm no longer in that reality. It's not my fault, and I'm not going to continue on with that story. I get to absolutely see myself as a person capable of being happy right now, and a person capable of making change right now and moving in the right direction.
You also have to contend with outside pressures as well, because
Tell me more.
if you get so let's say you always saw yourself as like the bad boy, or whatever context you want to put that in. Like, I do this bad behavior, and I ran into this a little bit too when I went back to see my friends in Florida, because they only knew me as the guy who drank every day. Well, they know me very well other than that, you know what I'm saying? So even though if you make the shift in your brain and you realize, like, okay, wait a second, that chapter's over, I'm no longer this, or I'm no longer that. There's also, as much as we all don't, like to admit it all the time, we do care what other people think to an extent, especially ones that are close to us. So you have to kind of reset your brain, reset chastise the inner child. Then you also have to be prepared for whatever outside pressures come in, or like what people may have viewed you as. And again, you're talking about like the Goodwill Hunting thing with the juvenile delinquency. Well, of course you get arrested a couple of times, which is an extreme example. Well, they go, oh, it must be bad. Now I've been to jail. Like society puts a lot of things on people that don't make it very easy for us to change. And that goes just along with social media is no big help either. So without spinning down that, you have a lot of external and internal things you have to fight with at the same time.
And we were talking about this on our last recording, actually, and it just so fits in here so perfectly. And it's the concept of Robert Cialdini wrote about in the book Influence, that one of the easiest ways to influence a person is by having them admit to an identity. And as soon as they admit to the identity, all that they want to do is be consistent. So, for example, if you've got a person that you think is going to have the way it's used in marketing, for example, is if you have a person, for example, that is that you think is going to be difficult to make a decision. If you can have them tell you a story about a time that they were adventurous, and you go, oh my God, you're such an adventurous person. That's absolutely amazing. And they're like, yeah, I am. And then you go, and then you tell them about it, and they go, it's like, you know what, that's too much for me. You go like, oh, I thought you were adventurous. I thought you would go for this. Yeah, you know what, I will go for it. Yeah, you're right. I can do this. And so what happens is a person will always try to be consistent with the identity that they've created for themselves. So, for example, if you go back to Florida and everyone there knows you as the bad boy, the drinker, whatever it is, and you keep that identity going, then what happens is you're going to be around them and you're going to say, and you're going to want to be consistent with it. And so the thing that allows a shift to happen very powerfully for people is when they genuinely, consciously design a new identity for themselves. So like, let's just say that you were known as Lee, the bad boy drinker. And then you actually genuinely start making shifts inside of yourself. And over the course of a short period of time, you start becoming more consistent as I'm no longer that guy. I am genuinely now not a drinker. And I can tell you this from my own life. This is something that happened for me throughout my 30s. Like I told you, I jumped on a trampoline because I was stupid and drunk. That is what I did. But as I got more into like more of the meditation mindset, I started adopting the mindset of I'm much more holistic. I'm much more focused in on healing my body, etc. And as soon as I developed that mindset, what happened was I showed up around my friends that were drinkers and they're like, or do you want to drink? And now I had a different identity to be consistent with. And I'm like, oh, I get it. You guys don't know who I've become. That's just, I just don't drink anymore. And now I'm consistent with that identity. And I will be honest, some people in your life may not like this new identity and they may not like who you are and they leave. And my logic is welcome to human evolution. Good freaking riddance. And the part that hurts a lot of my clients to hear is, I don't care if that person is your family member. I don't care if that person is your wife. At some point in time, if you've made a true conscious decision to become someone different and a person doesn't accept you for who you are, then you are allowed to sit there saying, I am not going to change who I am in order to fit into your view of who I am in this world. I want you to love and accept me for who I am today. Otherwise, we don't have a relationship. You've got a relationship with me that existed 5-10 years ago. Who I am today is this person. Do you love and accept me for who I am? Because if not, then you and I were not in a relationship anymore. You're in a relationship with me from back then. And as soon as you're ready to be in a relationship with me, you've got to accept me for who I am today.
I use drinking as an example, but this applies to a lot of good and bad habits. But drinking is a prominent one in society. And we all know somebody who drinks too much. But isn't it strange how you could say like, okay, big group of friends, we all used to drink together, maybe once a week, maybe 7 days a week, whatever. And then if you say, I'm just not going to drink anymore, or I'm going to cut back, I'm only going to drink a couple times a week, or a couple times a month with you guys, whatever it is. It's weird when other people get angry about that, and it doesn't have to be drinking. It could be another habit. It could be exercise. It could be time you change. In a way, I kind of get it because they're comfortable and people want to keep you at their level, it feels like. So when you try to break away from that, even if you're just going lateral and you're just doing something a little bit different, it's strange to see the reaction in certain people. And you're right. Those people just aren't, obviously you don't want to lose people, but those are the first ones that need to go. What a weird thing though. Like they get actually angry. Because I'm like, you can drink all you want. Just, are you mad that I'm over here not drinking? Like, what the hell's that all?
And I've seen this in my own life. I've seen it in my clients' lives so many times that like very often what's necessary, it's like people will get upset with you because they don't want to see you different. And it's not necessarily that they wish you bad. People want more of the same because that is what they're used to. And who the hell are you? They got a comfort zone, right? Like, it's like, this is what I got and you are part of that. And who the hell are you to change my comfort zone? Very often you do have to push people out of your life. And the interesting thing is when the person is genuinely a good friend, it's possible that you will push them out of your life for a moment. And what will happen is they need a moment to kind of like just recalibrate to the new you. And then they'll come back and they'll be like, so this is who you are now. And that's happened to me very often that like, I've made a change and I've kind of like just shown up as the new me around my friends. And at that moment, I had one of two choices. Either introduce them to the new me and say, this is who I am right now, or become the old me. And there were times that I specifically introduced them to the new me and my friends did not like it. And it was an uncomfortable moment that I kind of like. So I used to be very conflict avoidant, for example. That would be a good example. And then I learned how to be more radically honest, tell people the stuff that I didn't like about in a situation or the stuff that upset me. People did not like the fact that all of a sudden, Ori, that was always the nice guy and always had a smile on his face and always cracking jokes, all of a sudden it now has something to say when before Ori would have just brushed it off. And so a few different things happened. The one example I've got in my mind was one person that would always tease me and I would just always kind of take it. At some point in time, I didn't take it anymore and we stopped communicating. And so be it. And then other people got upset with me for communicating and it became a little bit of a thing. And I was like, look, I'm just not going to let you keep talking to me that way. I'm not cool with it. And they got, pardon my French, butthurt for a while, whatever it was. And then they realized the fact that I was a good enough person in me that they want to be around me for who I am. And they adapted to the new me and we've developed stronger, better relationship because of it. So you got to lose some people, but those people that you lose, they're just not your people anymore. And it's not to say that they weren't ever your people. They're just not your people anymore.
But he has their baseline, like you could have a group of 5 friends. One of them could be very direct and very like says everything that comes across their mind. And then on the other end, there could be somebody who's just super nice and just lets everything roll off their back and whatever, and is very people pleasing. And if the guy who's the super people pleaser or whatever, all of a sudden starts acting like the other one, they're like, whoa, you're an asshole. I'm like,
what the hell?
Well, he's been doing it the whole time.
What's
the big deal? Because we get used to each other's baselines. And when you deviate from that, it's like a personal affront to some people. Like, wait a second, they're doing it. And like, well, they've always been that way. I'm like, well, why does that make it okay?
And that is such a big thing. There's so many people that are on the brink of change, and something in their brain sits there saying, but I can't change because I'm going to lose this person in my life. I can't change because this isn't who I am. And I know I said this to you so many different times, and it's just like, I just go over it super quick, but that is one of the reasons why Joy and I will always kind of joke with each other and say, I don't need you in my life. And it's Joy, for those of you that are listening to this the first time, my girlfriend. And pretty often, like once a week, whatever it is, we'll joke with each other and we'll just say, I don't need you. And the reason why I say that is I don't want to, in the back of my mind, have the thought that I need to be a certain way. And if I'm not that way, I'm going to lose joy in my life. I want to feel so free and comfortable inside of myself that I get to be myself. And if Joy doesn't like it, we're going to deal through it. And if that means that we have grown apart, then we've grown apart. Obviously, I love and care for her enough that I'm going to do whatever I can to try and accommodate towards her. But I am not going to make myself a smaller person in order to fit into the view that she needs to have of me. And because we say that, we both feel comfortable enough to actually have the tough discussions and say, this is what I'm right now, or I'm not happy with what you're doing right now. And we talk it through. And neither of us feel the need to allow the other person to bully us back to the way we were. But we definitely allow them to convince us in terms of like, do you know what you're doing here? This is why I don't like it. And we listen, we go, do you know what? That's actually a very good point. And I didn't think about it. This is actually not a good change I'm making. And so it's just having another person in your life that you allow to be there for you. And if they're not happy with who you are, but you are, then I love you, but like I'm going to have to love you from a distance.
That's very powerful stuff. I could think of a dozen times, and well, a dozen, probably. And I'm not exaggerating either. I should probably censor myself a little bit more, but I can think of quite a few times in my life where I've been financially tied to somebody, or what a mess that's caused. But it's the same thing. Like when you say like, I don't need you, that is extremely powerful, even though you guys may do it like a little, like, I know you mean it, but like, yeah, kind of half joking, whatever.
Yeah.
But boy, it's a big deal, because when you break things down to their core, if you're like, well, shit, like, I really like genuinely need you to survive. Or if I didn't want to be here, would I actually admit to myself that I didn't want to be here? That's when stuff really gets really bad.
And taking that, so the example that comes to my mind, and very often happens, it's one or two examples come to my mind of a person that we actually make the shift with them. And unfortunately, the shift that they need involves them being different around either their parents or their partner, is usually the two big ones that happen. And what happens is they have such a strong reliance on those other people that they shift back to being that other weaker version of themselves, because that is what the other person requires. So it's the stupid example that comes to my mind is very often you get a couple that is that's trying to create a very powerful life for themselves, but their parents are micromanaging, kind of like the monster-in-law kind of thing. But unfortunately, the parents are helping them financially. And so I'm sitting there saying like, so your parents are feeding your children ice cream and cotton candy all the time, and you don't want to do that. And they go, I can't say no to my dad. And what in the back of their mind, they're really saying is, because if I did, my dad might actually abandon me and then go away with the money. And I need that money in order to make ends meet. And that sounds like a very rational explanation. But on a deeper level, what I end up working with them on is, imagine your dad died tomorrow. Imagine whatever happened. Could you still survive? And I get them to actually understand the fact that definitely having a person that helps them financially is a big thing in their life, and it definitely makes their life easier. They don't need that person in their life. And as soon as they can make that shift, what ends up happening is, yes, exactly like we said before, the father may get hurt, but if the father genuinely loves them and loves their children and loves being around them, the father will make a shift because now this is the new norm and I've got to fit into it. And if the father, unfortunately, is so difficult that they can't actually make that shift, I hate to say it, but dad have a really nice life. And if you're ready to come back, your grandchildren would really like to spend time with you.
It's tough. Like I said, the external forces on top of all the stuff, the maniac that we have to deal with that's in our own head every day, really doesn't make things easy. But I love the whole, the inner child thing really made a big difference for me, just recognizing who I was talking to. And when I say inner child, it doesn't have to be a 5-year-old. It could be a 28-year-old that's still in here doing stupid shit. So that's made all the difference in the world. So,
I just want everyone to just kind of like wrap their head around the fact that it's like that they, to some degree, are just living. It's, as I say, the two bases of my philosophy are, number one, you're living in a made up fantasy world. You are not living in reality. You're living in these stories in your head. And then the second one is, as I like to say, which is just a growth upon that, is you're immature. You still have a little kid driving you around, making all these decisions for you. And the more you can start looking at life from that point of view, and then the more you can start actually genuinely looking at reality and paying attention to what it is that's really, really occurring for you today, and calming that child down, or just with tough love, telling that kid, it's okay, shut up right now, it's different. Everything in your life can shift. It's like, I mean, it's not something that you need to come and work with me on. But it can sometimes be helpful to work with someone on. But like, it's just a matter of genuinely stepping back, looking at your reality, and sitting there saying, I'm not going to continue living in this made up fantasy world. And that's the thing I want people to walk away with from today's session, as I call it, from today's recording about, in terms of the fact that like this is something that can happen for you today.
That's well said. And like we mentioned before, the new community's open. We're in beta launch now, which is just a fancy way of saying we're working out some bugs, so be patient. But so far, we haven't had any major issues. Nothing's crashed yet, and we've got a lot of great content in there. We're adding more every day. We will link it in the description below. And take care, everybody. To be continued.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Hey everyone, it's Lee. Just one more thing before you go. If you've ever wondered if journaling could change your life, you can find out for free by downloading the Emotional Alchemy Journal from the link in the description. Also, if you're looking to connect with people who are just as passionate about growth as you are, check out our Facebook community. It's a great place to discuss what you've heard on the podcast and get access to exclusive content and sessions that are only available there. Just search for Human Evolution Movement on Facebook, or you can find the link in the description. Until next time, keep challenging the chaos within, be a little kinder to yourself, and let's continue to evolve together.